Welcome back to the Goal Line Stand here. Andrew Spaziano and Tom Condi back from our little mini hiatus. Tom, how you doing? How you feeling?
Good. It's good to be back on these waves, on the sound waves over here, and digested the draft and digesting all these rookie camps and just scouring the NFL landscape.
Yeah, it's kind of the last week or so since the draft has been real slow, so it's kind of just like this dead space between now in training camp. So
well, don't forget about mini camp. We get a little.
That's true.
We get a little small glimpse, and then it's training camp.
That's true. Mini camp's what, in another week or two?
Mini camp is in June. Training camp is
July,
August.
So it's a couple weeks.
Yeah.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, so we're kind of like we're kind of floating along here. So, we're just going to talk about a few different things, a couple of stories going on, some different.
Yeah, Des Bryant's still a free agent. Mark Ingram's being suspended.
Yeah.
Matt Ryan getting 155.
That's right.
155.
I know he's getting $30 million a year. He's getting a lot of money.
He deserves it.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is with quarterbacks is that a lot of these guys get crazy deals or, you look at it and think it's a crazy deal. I don't think that with Matt Ryan. I think that more with like Ryan Tannehill, Andy Dalton, guys like that who got that kind of money. But we've kind of talked about it with like people like Blake Bortles got an extension. It's like you're dealing with a known commodity. You know what you're going to get from that guy. So you're going to overpay him because that's what the position dictates. And I mean, Matt Ryan, in his case, he's a good quarterback. And he's a cornerstone for one of the better offenses in the league. So it's a no-brainer.
I wouldn't say that they're overpaying him.
No. But I just think people look at $30 million a year, and it's kind of because he is the highest paid player in NFL history per year on a per-year basis. So people say Matt Ryan, but it's like that's just the market. It depends.
Exactly.
It depends whose contract comes up when. And the thing with quarterbacks, every position, but especially quarterbacks, you're just going to one-up the previous guy.
Yeah, there's the 3 top value positions in the NFL who make the most money, and that goes quarterback, a pass rusher like a defensive end or a very generational stud defensive tackle, and a left tackle to protect your quarterback's blind side. Those are the 3 positions that have huge numbers when their contracts come up. So for Atlanta, like you said, they signed what they know. Excellent. I don't blame him for re-signing. I know people are like, oh, well, he choked in the Super Bowl. It's a team game.
Yeah, exactly.
They all choked. They all did it, even the coaching staff.
I'd say especially the coaching staff.
Yes, but I like the move. It was a no-brainer. They had to. Him under center gives them the opportunity to return to the Super Bowl or at least back to the postseason. And they have that continuity.
Oh, definitely.
Moving forward.
Definitely.
Until he decides to hang him up.
Yeah. And, I mean, he's in his early 30s right now, I think.
Yeah, I want to say mid-30s.
Yeah. So, like, it might not be his last contract, but it's probably his last probably long-term contract because I think this was a 4 or 5 year deal or something like that.
That's fair to say. I mean, unless he pulls a Tom Brady and plays till he's 42.
Yeah, that's exactly. So, Atlanta's just keeping intact what they have, and they know that they have like you said, a playoff caliber team. I'd say that's a team that has the pieces on both sides of the ball to be a Super Bowl team. And I mean, they were a couple years ago, but I still think at this point, I think their defense has only gotten better. I think they've added pieces to their offense. Whether or not their offense can be efficient with Sarkisian there is another story that we'll be touching on in a couple months when training camp rolls around. But yeah, I mean, I can't say that I have any different opinion than you on it. It's a move you got to make, and it's the right move.
Now, to close up this Matt Ryan talk, there's 2 points I want to come across. As the salary cap gets bigger, now envision a pie, your favorite pie, a blueberry pie, lemon, whatever. Now, this pie keeps getting bigger. Now, the most important position in the NFL is quarterback. So they're going to want a bigger piece of that pie. So when that pie keeps getting bigger, the salary cap, that keeps going up every single year, your quarterbacks are going to make that much more money. They're going to get those bigger numbers.
Yeah, it's more of it's like a percentage of the cap
Right.
kind of deal.
Right. Now, besides the teams like the Rams, Dallas, Eagles, who aren't spending nearly as much as other teams on their quarterback, they can use the different pieces of the pie, so to speak, on different positions. That's just the going rate, like we already went over. Plus, with this ever-evolving NFL, quarterbacks generally are hitting their stride, their peak at like 29 to 33.
Yeah.
And it's just the way the NFL is going right now, where you have these young quarterbacks who are gonna, their first 4 or 5 years, they're gonna learn the NFL game. They're gonna sharpen their mechanics, and by the time that they're 27 to 30, they already know all that. So now they're actually dissecting defensive plays and thinking more on a chess level.
Yeah.
Then I have to do this 1, 2, 3, read, throw. That's their young. That's why when you have a quarterback like a Wentz or a Goff, who, or even Dak his rookie year, who just come out of nowhere and is like, oh shoot, that's few years ahead of them.
Yep.
That's why they're great, and people fall in love with these quarterbacks at such a young career level.
Yeah. No, that's a very astute analysis of you. Sticking in that division, though, some more news that came out of the NFC South was Mark Ingram. He's going to be missing the first 4 games of the season because of a substance abuse violation.
Yeah, I know he tried to appeal it, but they shot that down.
Yeah, it was it's weird because they're not saying what it was, but it says that the only thing they're saying is he violated the league's policy on performance enhancing substances. Doesn't say it's a PED necessarily, just it's an illegal banned substance. Which is a weird list. It's not just the typical steroids and whatever. You know, you've got recreational stuff on there, marijuana, whatever, and then you just have like weird supplements that are just like, I know a lot of guys will take like a weird like brand of like cough syrup, for example, and it just has a banned substance in there, and then they get a failed test from the league, and they're like, well, what the hell? And then they read the back of the bottle and say, oh shit, I was taking this.
Yeah, I know with a few times when these stories come out, the players, especially when they're upper echelon players, they tend to, I don't want to say blame, but they're like, oh, my nutritionist or my trainer recommended this, so I took it. And then the NFL will turn around and be like, well, didn't they tell you what was in it? Didn't they do a little bit of investigation? So it's stuff when you use supplements and obviously recreational drugs and stuff like that. You got to be careful of what you put in your body, because the NFL, especially when you're in the NFL, they're going to test you once they smell smoke.
Yep.
No pun intended.
Yeah, it's according to his agents, they said that it was, quote, according to them, it was not a performance-enhancing substance nor an illegal substance, but a substance in fact permissible with the proper use exemption with the NFL. So basically what it means is that if you get prescribed something, whatever, some sort of supplement, you can say to the league, hey, is it okay if I take this?
You know what that sounds like? Adderall.
Yeah.
Seattle got busted for Adderall a few years ago when LOB was at its infancy.
Yeah, I remember that. It's very possible because Adderall obviously has prescription uses, but like you hear a lot of times like college kids will do it when they have finals and they use it to stay up all night and write their papers. So it has a performance enhancing aspect to it. So that's a fair takeaway.
Oh yeah, if you're struggling at the gym, if you got to be at the gym and doing physical work for 8 hours and you're not feeling it that day and you're not prescribed that medication of substance like Adderall, and that gets you wired. For those of you who don't know what Adderall does, it's a stimulant.
Yeah.
And you believe that you're Superman. And you can just bounce off the wall. So if you're not feeling like lifting, taking one of those will surely enhance your ability to lift weights.
Sounds like you have some first-hand experience there,
No.
Tom.
I just
I'm just playing.
I just know with these substances, I get curious. Oh, why did my favorite player do this? Oh, well, okay. I know now why. So it's just, when these stories come out, you do a little digging, you find out, and you move on. So his fantasy impact will be hurt.
Yeah.
Just like Des Bryant not finding a team yet.
My last thing on Mark Ingram, you bring it up in my personal league that I have with people I went to high school with and stuff. Mark Ingram was a guy I was considering keeping, and that ship sailed on Tuesday or whatever it was when the news came out. I was like, nope.
Oh, 100%. But really, even with Kamara there, huh?
Yeah, I mean,
You think they're going to duplicate last year?
Well, that's the thing is that now I think the interesting thing from an X's and O's and a fantasy perspective is, what if Kamara goes out there for 4 games and he just lights it up? What do they do at Ingram? Is Ingram his workload gonna totally plummet? You know what I mean? But I get what you're saying. The odds of them doing exactly what they did last year was low, but I do think New Orleans has adapted more of a running. Not necessarily, I don't know if it's run first, but they're more of a balanced attack where they focus more on a rushing game, and both of those guys bring different facets to the game. But I'm just really interested to see, in general, how Kamara does in those 4 games, and if they try to, I don't know what other backs they have on their roster, but if they can get another guy to kind of, take some of the between the tackles workload from him.
Sean Payton's an excellent coach, and I'm sure he's going to change a few things, tweaks here and there, and fix whatever to survive without Ingram, because that's a very competitive division.
Oh, definitely.
But you are right. I mean, they used to be 75-25 in the past compared to run, and last year they were more 50-50 or 60-40, but the run game was actually there. I don't see them repeating from last year, even before the PEDs with Ingram.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, a regression to the mean kind of thing where, if you have an above average season, you're going to fall back to earth a little bit, just kind of back to the average. So that's a fair point. I think we do have to, a guy you brought up and a guy I know you want to talk about, we do have to talk about Des Bryant, because I know there was some stuff that came out about him. Just the fact that no one seems to be too interested in bringing the X into town.
Yeah, I am surprised. I'm sure he's kicking himself in the ass for declining that Baltimore deal 3 years. Yeah, right now the way it looks, I would say it would have to take a training camp injury or a preseason injury so that he will be signed.
Which will probably happen. I mean, it happens every year.
Yeah, I'm sure someone will get down and they'll need some help.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's going to get signed, even if an injury doesn't happen. I do think at some point in training camp, I think somebody will bring him in, and just see what he has. Because if you're a receiver-thin team, once you get on the practice fields at camp and actually see what you have, and you realize, wow, we're a little thin at receiver, just throw a little line out there and bring him in, have him take a physical, have him practice a little bit, see what he has. I mean, kick the tires a little bit.
Yeah, I am surprised he hasn't found a new home yet, but yeah, if you've watched All or Nothing, the Amazon Prime special, it's Dallas Cowboys this year.
Mm-hmm.
His persona in the wide receivers room, it's
not great.
Yeah, it's not great. I love Dez. I love number 88. But if I was the coach and he was my prime time wide receiver, oh boy, he's a handful.
Hey, that's a very
he's a handful.
That's a fair analysis.
Yeah, he's a handful. One of the episodes, it was the week 2 game they're prepping for. It was when Dallas traveled to Denver. And all the wide receivers coach was just telling them that, you have to be on your A game with this defense, because if you're not going to score points. And all the coach was doing was just explaining to him, sometimes you're on your B game and we'll score 21 points. That's good. This team, if you bring your B game, you're not going to score any points. And then Dez just shrugs them off. And why are you bringing them up so high? Like, why are you putting them on the altar? And yeah. And
then you see what happened.
Yeah, and it's just, well, Dez, sometimes I love you, Des, but sometimes you just gotta learn. Just
my whole thing
be the
with,
player.
my whole thing with him is that I said this to you off the air when this story came out, is that I think the thing with Dez is that he doesn't understand that he is not in control here. He's not in the place of leverage in a negotiation. The fact is, you've said it before, he hasn't had really a great season since 2014. You said to me that he's had trouble beating single coverage. I think somebody from the Dallas staff actually came out and said that.
Will McClay.
Yeah, so if you think about that, and then you think about what you're saying about all the locker room distraction kind of thing, nobody, I don't want to say nobody because I think he will get signed, but right now, people don't want to deal with that. They want to have a positive culture, and they're not going to spend even the minimum on a guy who is a loudmouth dude who isn't even contributing at the elite level he once was.
Yeah, and plus also, on the other side, teams just went through the draft, just went through free agency. So, like you already said, they want to see their new toys out on the field, and then they can just go, yeah, you know what? Dez would fit well in here.
Yeah, it's no, definitely. I mean, Dallas, I don't know. I mean, my opinion was they kind of did him dirty by cutting him when they did, but obviously it was, they didn't know what decision to make. They were kind of on the fence about it. They were some loyalty to the player or whatever. But the timing wasn't great for when he got cut. It was after free agency, really. It was a couple weeks before the draft, or somewhere in that neighborhood. So it wasn't like he was released right before the league year, right before free agency. So it was just kind of a bad place to be in that respect. And then, like you said, he turned down that deal from Baltimore.
Right, but let's not forget, though, Dallas also put big money again on Sammy Watkins the first week of free agency, that first tier.
Yep.
So if Dallas does sign Sammy Watkins, then Dez gets cut later that
Right.
week or next week. So he's on that second tier of free agency.
Yeah, but he's still in the mix of free agency.
Right, but because Dallas didn't get Watkins, they weren't really chasing anybody else until week 3 of free agency when they sign Hearns. If they don't sign Hearns, I can see Dallas keeping Dez.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point, though, because if you're Dallas, you don't get Watkins, then you're saying you have to figure out what you're going to do, and you have to have some direction. So, like, to your point, you sign Alan Hearns, then you have something there to work with. So now, there's going to be a hole losing Dez, but you feel like you have enough people, whether it's people you brought in. I think you guys brought in a couple guys in the draft.
We spent 2 picks in the draft, and then we signed Tristan Thompson.
Yep.
And Alan Hearns. Those were the big signees.
Yeah, and then you have the guys who were already there. They felt comfortable with the idea of, well, we can work with what we have, and plus we don't want this distraction, trying to set the culture. So, yeah, it's interesting. There's a lot of, I think we've covered a lot of the layers they're going into, and not just on the field production, but the locker room stuff. I mean, you can't discount what one guy can do to a locker room and how he can have an impact, especially a guy who had the stature he did in Dallas.
But don't get it twisted. He's not a cancer. I just want to make that clear. He's not a cancer. He's not a cancer. It's just he's a very big personality that you need to harness. And a player like him, you need to talk to your leaders in the locker room and say, can you deal with this? Because he's very passionate about the game. I've watched every single game since he's come out rookie season. He's a very gifted athlete. He's just vocal, and he doesn't know how to harness his emotions.
That's fair. Yeah. I mean, it's passion and drive is great, but if it's not used correctly, it's a detriment.
Exactly.
So,
and with that, his fantasy outlook will be diminished.
I would say right now it's about in the toilet.
Now, speaking of fantasy, I just want to go over this. I saw an article today about fantasy, and I'm a big fantasy guy. I play a half-point PPR. You do as well. You're in my league.
Yes.
And this is just standard. I'm just going to give you a top 10 for standard, and we'll go over afterwards and slide a couple guys.
So where'd you find this article? NFL?
This is NFL.com, and to be specific, this is Michael Fabiano's top listing, and I'm just gonna read off the top 10. I will say before this is standard. This is just standard scoring. 8 of the top 10 are running backs, 2 are wide receiver.
Oh, so no quarterbacks.
No quarterbacks. Come on, this is fantasy.
And it's standard.
All right, so we got Le'Veon at the top of the list, Todd Gurley at 2, 3 Ezekiel Elliott, 4 David Johnson, 5 your first receiver Antonio Brown, 6 surprisingly rookie from the New York Giants Saquon Barkley, 7 Alvin Kamara, 8 Kareem Hunt, 9 Leonard Fournette, and to round this out, number 10, second wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins.
Interesting.
Yes, right?
You know what? My biggest surprise on that list, I think, is Alvin Kamara, especially
Really?
in a standard setting.
Oh, yeah,
Think about it. There's no point per reception. But I will say his value is obviously going up. We talked about the Ingram suspension, so he's going to be the guy. And he's probably going to be the focus, I'd say, probably more in that offense this year anyways. But, yeah, I mean, and DeAndre Hopkins in there is interesting, too. I understand why he is. It's just I expect you to say Julio Jones.
He's a target hog, though. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Matt Ryan will spread it out in that Atlanta offense where Deshaun Watson, when he comes back, or if he gets hurt, DeAndre Hopkins is a target hog.
Yeah, and I love DeAndre. That was surprising for me.
Yeah, and then for all of you who play in half-point PPRs like we do or full-point PPRs, you can slide some of these guys around. I mean, arguably the top 4, Le'Veon, Gurley, Elliott, David Johnson, you really can't go wrong with those top 4.
Right.
I mean, in a full PPR, you might have Antonio Brown slide up into the top 3, maybe.
Yeah.
You might have a couple of more receivers up there, Odell Beckham, Julio, and then you'll have maybe Leonard Fournette fall a little bit.
Yeah, the Fournette, it's not that I don't think he belongs there. What did he miss? He missed like 4 games last year, didn't he?
Yeah, he missed a few.
Yeah, and he produced in the games he played, so it wasn't like he was still like a top 5 or whatever he was fantasy back. Like he was still up in the upper echelon. But that's my only thing with him is just the injuries. And the injury thing is from college, too. He's always had that kind of problem.
But the thing to be successful in the fantasy world, no matter if you play with 2 running backs, 3 running backs, bell cow running backs are elite.
Oh, that's true.
So that's why I think he's top 10 because at least top 12 because of that. I mean, you'll have your second tier, your Melvin Gordon, your LaShawn McCoy, Dalvin Cook, those guys. But for bell cows, because he's going to touch the ball 20, 28 times. They don't want Bortles to throw the ball 30 times.
Yeah, and
that's not a recipe for success.
The offense goes through him.
Exactly.
That's fair.
And Le'Veon is a freak up top.
I see. The only other thing I'd say is I think head to head, this is ironic because nobody was high on him last year. I think I take Todd Gurley over Le'Veon Bell. Because I love the Sean McVay system.
Whew.
And, I mean, it's not that I don't think Le'Veon has the same value he did. I just think Todd Gurley, man, he does what Le'Veon Bell does. He lines up in the slot. He's their Swiss Army knife in that offense. And I just think the thing with Pittsburgh is that you're always going to have a divide between him and Brown because they're the 2 best players at their positions. And they're still going to produce at a high level. But I feel like Gurley is the guy. I mean, they have pieces around there, Cooks, Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods. They have pieces that complement him, but he's the main dude there.
Oof.
That's just me.
So you're telling me if you had the number 1 overall pick, you're picking Gurley over Bell?
Yeah, I'd die on that hill.
Oof. Yeah, I don't. Well, I'm a. Yeah, I mean, I'd pick Ezekiel Elliott. So.
Oh yeah, you have a little bit more in stock there than just the X's and O's.
But between Gurley and Bell, I love Bell. I mean, he's all 3 down back, he's a wide receiver playing running back playing wide receiver. I would take Bell.
Yeah.
Me personally, I'd take Bell.
No, go ahead. I've talked a lot about this. I'm curious what you think.
For wide receivers, Antonio Brown, I do buy. The next guy for me would actually be Odell. Now, I understand he's coming back from injury, but that guy is prime time as anybody can be, unless they're playing Green Bay in the playoffs.
Well, my whole thing is that, to support your point, I mean, you have Barkley there now, and now it's like you can't just
and
focus.
A revamped offensive line.
Yeah, but you can't just focus on the pass now. You have to respect the run. You have to more than respect the run. You have to try to stop the run. So I think it's going to open up some throwing lanes for him, because you're not going to just be trying to clog up the throwing lanes. You're going to be trying to put more guys and try to fill the gaps in the offensive line. So it's, yeah, I can buy that. I don't know if I necessarily put him at my number 2, but my stock's definitely higher on him than it was last year.
Yeah, that's why I had to bring him up, just because I know you just said Gurley over Bell, so I had to have a little bit of pizzazz with the wide receivers. I love me my wide receivers.
You know, there was an interesting thing talking about receivers, and I said I have a surprise Julio Jones wasn't number 10. I don't know what the numbers were last year. I know I don't know if the trend continued, but I think it was each of the past 3 years going into last year, Julio's catches and targets had declined. There was a stat that in 2016, he had less catches. No, I'm sorry, less targets than he did catches the year before, which I don't necessarily think means that he's declining. I think it means there's more options in the offense.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Sanu, they drafted Calvin Ridley too, so that's another guy that's going to be out there, another mouth to feed.
Matt has been spreading the ball,
which is good for the team from an offensive perspective. But if we're talking about fantasy perspective,
and that's what we're talking about.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I can buy it. I could also say, I don't know. I can't say for sure what I do, but there's definitely consideration in my mind to take Odell over Julio.
Yeah.
Like I'd probably go 75-25. Probably in favor of Odell.
How about DeAndre? DeAndre was number 10 on the list.
DeAndre's tough. I love him as a player. Like you were saying with the targets, I love that. It's just the thing that makes me iffy about him is Watson and his health. You don't know where he's at, how he's going to be when he comes back. If I knew Watson was going to be healthy, I mean, he's the bona fide easy number 2 for me. If that was a guarantee, it's not. I mean, he still produced with the junk at quarterback, but it wasn't the same. So, yeah, he's probably my 2 to 3. I guess Brown's my number 1, and then
I think that's everyone's number 1 is Antonio Brown.
That's not anything near a hot take here.
Yeah, I mean, unless Jerry Rice comes back from his prime.
Yeah, exactly.
Somehow, some way.
The Wayback Machine or something. But yeah, I mean, you got Brown, and I think 2 through 4 for me, it's going to be Odell, Julio, and Hopkins are just
really
kind of,
you put Hopkins down bottom?
No. I'm not saying in that order. I'm saying they're kind of they're in the flow there for that.
I see what you're saying.
It's kind of a toss up for me. I mean, I can go through the pros and cons of each. I'd honestly say I'd probably put Julio at 4.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment.
You know, and then those other two.
Me personally would be AB, OBJ, D-Hop, and then Jones.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I don't know. I'd probably put Hopkins ahead of Odell, but that's far from a guarantee from my perspective.
I can understand that because OBJ's coming back from an injury, and that's the thing that gets me a little nervous if I do select him in this upcoming fantasy draft. He's coming back off an injury, and he's not a big guy. He's not 6'3", 220. Yeah. So he must rely on crisp route running and his speed and quickness. And having a leg injury like that is going to be detrimental to his speed and quickness. So I'm hoping his recovery is all that and then some. Because even as a division rival, I don't like the Giants. I don't want to see him win any more Super Bowls. But I do like Odell Beckham as a player.
I'll say this much, and you and I work together, so you know I have firsthand experience in my family with ankle injuries. You know, my dad broke his ankle last September, And granted, he's a 54-year-old man. He's not
A professional athlete.
Exactly. So, take it with a bit of a grain of salt. But they said to my dad before the surgery, they said, your ankle is never going to be the same. It's always going to feel a little weird. Now, granted, he's just, a dude who broke his ankle. This isn't Odell Beckham. I will say, he's obviously had a more intensive rehab and whatnot than what my dad had. But your concern is warranted because it's going to be a little weird. I think he's obviously been rehabbing because his happened in October, September himself, Odell.
Yeah, it was in like the first quarter of the season.
Yeah, it was early. So he's had time to rehab it, but I'm just curious to see like what his burst is like, to your point. I just want to see like how he cuts. They always say about ACLs that you're never the same dude the first year back. It takes a couple years to kind of get back to your normal self. So I'm wondering what Odell just kind of, if he has that same thing with his ankle, just getting used to it.
Now, I will say, a little deviate from the fantasy football and whatnot. Now, real X's and O's, real football people, selecting Barkley, reamping that offensive line. The New York Giants are a team to watch out for in the NFC. Now, I will say that division is tough. It's not going to be a cakewalk. You have your Super Bowl defending champions, the Philadelphia Eagles, the Dallas Cowboys, who don't go away easy. The Redskins, I
would say they're an exception to the rule.
Well, they made moves that, they made moves.
Some sort of moves, positive or negative, remain to be seen.
They are the redheaded stepchild in the division because, they traded for Alex Smith and they spent too much money on Richardson.
They spent so much money on Paul Richardson.
Yeah,
I couldn't pick Paul Richardson out in like a lineup of 10 random people.
Their defense isn't a defense to hang your hat on, and
yeah.
But anyways, that deviates. They're a team that I can see go punch for punch with a team like the Rams, a team that people look at and like, oh, that's a solid team. Punch for punch with Minnesota. A punch for punch with any team in the NFC side where if you want to match them up on the NFC Championship, they are a team that, yes, they were dominant defense last year and their offense was lackluster to say the least. But now they traded JPP and they moved some assets from that defense to offense, and now they're a more well-balanced team altogether. Yeah. Not just we'll have our defense who let up 13, 21 points, and Eli throwing the ball 40 times to OBJ scoring 45. Now they're more of a team where the defense will be efficient. Offense is going to run the ball. They're going to dictate. They spent money on that offensive line in order to not only protect, but to be aggressive in the rushing lanes. And now with OBJ back, you have him another year with Evan Ingram, who's a very talented tight end. Now, he's not a traditional blocking tight end, but hold on, I'm trying to think. Evan Ingram, right?
Yeah, and then they also have Sterling Shepard, who I like at receiver.
Yes. Sorry, I was trying to deviate because I was thinking I said the name wrong.
No, you're good.
Now, when OBJ got hurt, they moved Evan Ingram. They flexed him out more, almost like a wide receiver because he's not a traditional run blocker. So I am curious to see if they do more double tight end sets or whatnot. But he's an outside threat we can flex out and put OBJ in the slot on the same side, and it's just going to cause all these mismatches on the defensive side for other teams.
Yeah, to your point, I think Odell's a really versatile guy to line up in the slot. He's not necessarily a guy who's going to run that over the middle Julian Edelman kind of route necessarily, but just having him in a slot, matching him up with your slot corner, and just giving him the ability to run the routes to the outside of the field, or even over the deep middle of the field. And having, say you line him in a slot and Ingram's on the outside. That's a hell of a match.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah. That's a hell of a matchup.
Yeah, conundrum. and then you have Sterling on the outside on the other as your X.
Yeah,
and then you have Barkley. This is what I was nervous about.
Yeah, yeah. No, to your point, I would say, the NFC as a conference is fascinating. We've talked about that before, and it's just the intrigue has been added by this offseason and draft and whatnot. My whole thing is that I think Dallas and the Giants both have a potential being a wild card team. I mean, I still would say, Philly's no guarantee to win a division, but I think they're the clear front runner with the talent they have.
It's that clear, you think? It's that clear? It's that cut and dry?
I'd say probably 60-40 at least, Philly versus any other team. I think they have the...
I'm trying to compartmentalize my biasism, but
to
look at that division and go, Philadelphia will win that. Even me,
no, it's not the same level as New England's going to win the East, but I mean...
nowhere close.
Yeah, I mean, but I think, like...
On the AFC side, not to cut you off, on the AFC side, I could see the NFC East compared to AFC West.
Yeah.
You look at the AFC West, who's going to win?
But see, the funny thing with the NFC is I think there's two divisions that are like that. The South is the same way. The South is just as
yeah. You have Tampa Bay is your odd team.
Exactly.
Tampa Bay's the Washington. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
But I mean, I think Tampa's better than Washington, which isn't saying much. But I think they have more potential than Washington. I'm really down on Washington. That's just me.
I'm sure the fan base is too after trading for Alex Smith.
Have you ever gone on the NFL Reddit and looked at Redskin fans' comments there?
No.
Bless them. Just bless them. It's a very sad, sarcastic place, and I appreciate their diligence. But anyways, but yeah, the NFC just as a whole has a lot of intrigue to it. But yeah, the East, I do think Philly still has the upper leg on the other two. But
why?
Because I still think that they've retained the core of what they had last year, and that was the best team in football last year. I think you've got a target on your back more so now because people are taking you more seriously. So that's granted that's there, but I just think that they've added to their pass rush, provided that Michael Bennett plays because I know he's had some legal issues. They still have the offense. I mean, the question mark for me is how Wentz comes back, if he comes back on time.
Okay, all right. If Carson Wentz isn't there for the first, let's say, 3 weeks, even just right now, if you need to, just so you know, he's not there. We don't know when he's gonna come back. You have Nick Foles. It's a question mark for how long he'll start for. Okay.
Yeah.
You still they're the number one team in the division. This is the NFC East, not the NFC.
Yeah,
NFC
yeah.
East.
You'd
put Nick Foles and that Eagles against Eli and the Giants.
I mean, I'd still say they're number one, but it's definitely a lot less of a sure thing. I mean, my whole thing is if he misses 3 games, say, I still would peg them. I still think they should win the division. If he misses like 4, 5, 6, then the questions begin.
Well, because this is the big question mark with Philadelphia.
No, it is.
They are the Super Bowl defending champions, but their gold, their black pearl is Wentz, and we don't know when he's gonna come back. He says all the right things. I'm gonna be there week 1.
Sure,
but you can't rush these things.
I think the big question with Philly is, even when Wentz is there, I'm very curious to see how teams have adapted to the RPO, the run-pass option, because that was such a big...
That was their bread and butter.
Yeah, and teams are going to be prepared against that. I mean, they undressed New England in the Super Bowl because they couldn't defend it. New England couldn't defend against Kansas City week 1. They couldn't defend it against the Eagles, and that was kind of a trend around the league. So, yeah, I mean, I think their question is obviously Wentz, but it's the schematic thing is that, can you run the RPO successfully? And if you get figured out, can you adjust to it? And I think they have a smart coaching staff, though they did lose Frank Reich, so you did lose the offensive coordinator.
And Shermer, I think, right? No,
Shermer went from the Vikings.
Right, that's right. That's right.
Schwartz is the defensive coordinator there, so you're thinking of.
Yep.
But, yeah, I mean, again, I'd say Philly is the favorite in the division, but...
Even without Wentz. I just want it on record.
Yeah, but it's a lot. But there's more to it. It depends on the length of time he's out.
We don't know though. That's the thing.
That's what I mean.
You're walking into training camp. You're walking into preseason, not knowing when Wentz is gonna come back.
Well, that's my whole thing. I don't feel like I can accurately judge and say. I think if he's out, like you said, 3 weeks, then I still think they're in a decent shape. I mean,
you got to play it by now, though. That's the thing. Your roster right now, he's injured. You can't play him right now.
Yeah, for the whole year, then
No. Well, until
that's
there's
what I
no
mean.
diagnosis.
But that's what I mean. I'll say this, like, I still think Philly as a complete roster is very deep. I think they still have a lot of the core pieces in place from the Super Bowl last year, and I think frankly they're probably still preseason the best team in the league.
Oof.
Well, but the whole Wentz thing throws a wrench into it because when you don't have
even
him,
with Wentz, I take Minnesota. I'll take Minnesota.
it's tough. It's close.
You can't even, especially right now with Kirk Cousins over there.
Yeah,
That's no repeat of the NFC Championship.
no, it's true.
They're scoring points.
Yeah.
That's not Case Keenum.
Yeah.
He's not Case Keenum.
No, I know.
He's a better passer.
Oh, I know.
I don't know what Denver was thinking about going after him first, but that's a whole other story.
Oh God.
That's why that AFC West is so wide open.
Yeah, it's
Because think about it. If they pony up the money, they get Kirk instead of Case Keenum.
Oh, then they're a top 3, at least a top 4 team in the AFC. If not,
I'd say top 3 team in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because I don't know. I think Pittsburgh on paper is the best team in the conference. I think with the weapons they have, they're the best team, and then New England's too. I don't know if Denver with Cousins, like, they're in the conversation. I'm being objective as a New England fan. I mean, Pittsburgh had a better team last year. They should have beat New England the first time they played, and then
it was a catch.
It was. It was, and then
by rule now it is.
And then they pissed down their leg and threw a pick. It's pure and simple. So, but I mean, I think on paper, if we're just talking about that,
yeah, on paper, you're right.
Pittsburgh's the better team. But
but the thing with them is their defense. Pittsburgh defense is you have.
But
you have the killer bees. I understand that, but when your defense lets up almost 50 points to Jacksonville and Blake Bortles,
Well, the whole thing is, I mean, I like that they got Burnett from Green Bay to shore up the secondary. I mean, they've made some moves. I don't even know who the hell they took in the first round.
They're still lacking in the linebacking core, though.
Yeah,
that's the thing that gets me is your linebacking core. That's your spine.
That's what surprised me is they took they took Edmonds, the safety from Virginia Tech, which is a fair move because their secondary has been. It's gotten better, but it's still not great. So I can understand it. But, yeah, their linebackers are still a question mark. And, you know, we talked about it when we were doing our pre-draft stuff about the Ryan Shazier injury, and you have to overcome that and try to fill that void a little bit. And, yeah, it's true. I just think.
And the thing with them is that they run a 3-4.
Yeah.
They need 2 quality linebackers who are going to flow to the play every time.
Yeah. So I don't know, but I mean, if I'm sitting here now, I think Pittsburgh and New England and then Jacksonville, I mean, are the clear top 3 for me. But to
the AFC, yeah.
Yes,
AFC.
obviously. I mean, I frankly think you could probably argue that 3 of the top teams in the NFL are in the NFC. Philly, Minnesota, and New Orleans.
Ooh.
I mean, I think maybe you could throw Pittsburgh or New England in there if you want to. I mean, you can make an argument, but I mean, I really am high on the Saints. I like the Eagles roster, as I've said. The Wentz injury is the big question of the offseason.
Yeah, and then Minnesota.
We know what Minnesota is, and
right.
their quarterback got better.
Yeah, that number 3 of the NFL, the Saints, that kind of threw me for a loop.
But I would make that argument. I mean, because I think you're talking about a generational talent at quarterback who still has the ammunition to put some zing on the ball. You've got, Ingram's going to miss the first 4 weeks, but you still have a great running back in Kamara.
Yeah, Ingram, he's kind of the odd man. He's, even without him.
Yeah, you have Michael Thomas, who's one of the best young receivers in the league.
Excellent.
And then their defense is young and talented, and
they're on the upswing.
Yep, and they traded up to get that defensive end from
Texas. Marcus Davenport.
Yep, and that was their whole thing, is that they wanted to put another pass rusher opposite of Cameron Jordan, and that's what they did.
Yeah,
so,
one of my good friends is a big Saints fan, and he was pumped when they traded up for him.
The preface is we were at Tom's place to watch the first round of the draft, so we got to see all the reactions live. And
yes,
your buddy was there, and he was souped.
Yeah,
and I don't blame him because I I like what the Saints are building there. So, I mean, that's why I think they could be a top 3 team in the NFL preseason right now because they've just added to that team that was already really good.
Yeah, and you can never have too many pass rushers, that's for sure.
No, definitely.
I mean, shoot, you could be like the New England Patriots signing a 52-year-old pass rusher named James Harrison and have him play 90% of the snaps.
God bless. How did that team? I swear to God, man, I sat there watching that Super Bowl. I said, how the hell do we make it here with this? Like, this is truly a testament to like Brady and just scheme and everything. I was like, God.
The Jacksonville Jaguars just kind of unfolding in the fourth quarter with a little bit of Tom Brady fourth quarter comeback sprinkled on top. That's how you guys got there.
Yeah. No, definitely. Yeah, I mean, and Jacksonville's a team that interests me. I mean, they've reached, how do I say it? They've gotten so far along the journey. I'm just curious to see how they can respond this year because you can't come out this year and just be like, oh, we made it to the AFC Championship game and just, act like everything's going to be, smooth sailing there. You have to be hungry. That's what interests me about teams like that. You saw it with Oakland the year before. Oakland was another young team that had a great season. And I think, I've heard other people say this, that they think Oakland just came out and had this idea that they were already in the playoffs, and you have to earn it every season. So that's my thing with Jacksonville is they're so young and talented that are they going to use last year as motivation, or are they going to use it as a means to feel like they can coast?
Yeah, you make a good point, but I will say they're in a division that
it's an interesting division.
Average competition.
Really?
They're not. It's not the.
I'm not trying to make it sound like it's an elite division, but I think Houston has intrigue to it, and that's dependent on Watson's health.
But just like Philadelphia, you have Watson.
I'm very curious to see what Tennessee does this year.
Yeah, I mean they could.
Tennessee's just a team.
In there.
Tennessee just fascinates me because I think they have pieces to beat. Like, they should be a better team than they were last year, and I think a lot of that was the scheme on offense was junk. It didn't fit the Mariota strengths. That's the thing is we don't know what Mariota is. Like, we've talked about Winston and Mariota on the show before. My whole thing is I think we have a better idea of what Winston is than we do Mariota.
Yeah.
Because Winston, we know what he is. He has a ton of talent, but he's a dumbass decision maker. And that's the thing is that he's more of a known thing. Mariota, as much as I'm not a huge fan of him as a player, can you really say for sure what you know about him? He's had like 3 different coaches in his career. Vrabel's either his 3rd or his 4th coach. I think he's his 3rd since he came into the league. He's only been in the league, 4 years?
Yeah, I want to say they picked up his 5th-year option just now. So.
Yeah. So he's going into his 5th year.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, that's an absurd amount of turnaround for a guy that, number one, is
trying to learn the NFL game.
And number 2, I don't want to say he's unconventional because mobile passers have become more of a regular thing. Lamar Jackson, being the newest phenomenon of that.
Ooh, Lamar. Yeah, finish your thing. I got some combos about Baltimore.
Yeah, definitely. But I want to see what Vrabel does. I want to see they got the offensive coordinator from the Rams, who's a disciple of Sean McVay. I'm not expecting him to be the AFC Rams, but what I'm expecting is maybe they put him in better positions to succeed. And I'm not anti-Mariota where I want to see the kid fail. I'm just not sold on him necessarily. But I think if you're going to... But I don't know to counter that if we've seen enough to really judge him given his circumstances.
I understand the coaching carousel, but, I mean... weapons on the outside are far in between because, I mean, besides Delaney Walker, he was handing the ball off and running out and lasso plays and rodeos, which are rollouts.
Yep.
Yeah, I just he doesn't have the weapons that you would like him to have.
Oh, I'm curious to see what Corey Davis does this year.
Yes,
if he's healthy.
Yes, and they showed a little bit of flash in the playoff game against New England about what they can do, but he was hampered by injury. I want to say halfway through the season.
Yeah, he really. I don't know exactly how many games he missed because of it, but it was really tough for him to kind of develop and get used to the NFL being hampered with that.
Talking about Davis?
Yeah.
Yeah, because the NFL game is so much different from the collegiate level.
Yeah, and you're talking about a guy that went to Central Michigan, so it was like, and I'm not saying like he didn't have to like work while he was there or anything, but I mean, it's not the same. I think it was Western Michigan.
It's not. Here's the thing: in college, it's in most majority college levels, they don't run it as like the pro style offenses. So as a wide receiver, you're mostly being told what to run, and that's it. Where once you get into the NFL, on one play, you probably have about 2 to 4 pass patterns that you need to read the defense, recognize, and then run the proper route. Because if not, the quarterback's going to throw the ball where you think, well, where he reads the coverage and where he knows that you should be. That's the difference between the college level and the NFL game.
I hear you.
So it will be interesting to see them two progress, and especially now without DeMarco Murray, can they have a triplet style where you have your quarterback, you have Henry in the backfield, Davis as your outside threat. They're moving in the right direction, but I don't
That's
know.
fair.
I just don't buy. I mean, they were the odd team for me. We were walking into the playoff push.
I'm with you.
That division is Jacksonville's. I mean, Houston, I know we already went over that. It depends on Deshaun. Right now, we don't know. We don't know.
I'll wrap it up saying I think Jacksonville should win the division, but I think it's going to be more competitive than you might think.
And then to not leave them out, Indianapolis is, well.
I think they made some. They got Quentin Nelson in the draft. I really like that move. You know, they did a good job of consolidating picks. And I'm just curious to see Luck comes back. You know, hopefully he's healthy.
I hope he does.
Yeah. I mean, I got nothing against the guy. I mean, he's got a lot of talent, and I'm just curious to see how he is. You know, not only just can he make the throws, but can he stay healthy while he's on the field. But I think they're trending in the right direction. I just don't think that trend is going to really be noticeable this season.
It's going to be a slow progress.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think if you can just be more competitive and more, I don't know, win more games. If you can win 6-7 games this year, it's a victory in my mind. But I want to hear your Baltimore take, Lamar Jackson.
Oh, that's right. Lamar. So rumor has it that Lamar has reached out to Flacco via phone calls and texts, and Joe has not responded.
Well, that's just like in Pittsburgh, where Ben's a little miffed that they took Mason Rudolph in the third round.
But at least, yeah, that's different, though. That's different.
Yeah.
That's a lot different.
It's different.
That's a lot different.
Yeah, no, because, yeah, to your point, I mean, Flacco can foreseeably get replaced by him immediately. Ben is more of kind of that Brett Favre situation.
What do you mean?
Because he's been sitting there, oh, I might retire next year. He's kind of been, like, teasing it.
Yeah. I mean, he wants a ring. That's what he's there for. He wants another ring.
Yeah.
But
I don't blame teams for investing in the future.
Yeah, I don't neither, but it's like he's coming off of a loss of a magnitude like Jacksonville. What do you think? I'm there 100%. He's going to be he's long in the tooth, so he's been in the NFL for a few years. So he's yeah, I don't know. I'm just He just lost a game, so he's gonna say, "I don't know. I'm gonna evaluate my priorities."
No, but he was saying that even in the preseason last year.
Year too. Yeah, well, they lost. What they lose last year?
They lost to Jacksonville in the regular season.
No. 2 years ago when he started saying it.
Oh, they lost to New England.
Yeah. So after these losses, you gonna play next year? I don't know. I'm gonna go over my priorities and I'll get back to you. From the organization standpoint, of course they're gonna have your spot for you. You just got to commit. Now, if you're going to do that, I understand. If you're going to be wishy-washy and be like, oh, I don't know, they're going to move on and grab another quarterback for the future. That's why I'm saying it's totally different, because Baltimore, Joe's feeling the heat right now.
He should be.
He's feeling the heat.
That team, I mean, that defense was pretty good last year. The thing is that there were times last year where he definitely held that team back. And the thing is that Harbaugh's feeling the heat. Harbaugh is 5 years removed from that Super Bowl? What have they made the playoffs? Like once or twice since then? They haven't made the playoffs in the last 2 or 3 years, and that's an organization that was getting used to being the top of the AFC. They were in the discussion, and they haven't been in the discussion the last few years. And I think that organization, the fan base especially, is getting tired of it. And I think they're, whether that's right or not, getting a little short with Harbaugh. And he's sitting there and he's saying that, a lot of the problem is Flacco. And the thing is that I think that the criticism for Harbaugh and Flacco was kind of it's connected, because I think that it's not just Harbaugh, it was Newsome too, because they signed Flacco to that huge deal, understandably coming off the Super Bowl, but that money's prevented them from acquiring talent they needed at receiver, bolstering their defense, offensive line, etc. So they've kind of pigeonholed themselves with this whole thing with Flacco, and I think now they're, like you're saying, they're finally opening the door to life without him, potentially.
I think it was a good move drafting him, Lamar, because this is Ozzy's final year.
Yeah.
And he regretted when they won the first Super Bowl against New York, when they didn't re-sign their quarterback. He didn't want to fall victim to that again. So that is why they spent big money on Joe after the Super Bowl, because they didn't want to get egg on their face. Just like after winning the first one.
I understand it. Like, I don't even know if you can criticize it. I just think it's with hindsight. He isn't the guy they thought he was.
But they also don't have the talent around him like other teams.
True.
I mean, who's their number one receiver?
No, it's
of the past, let's say, 2-3 years.
Steve Smith.
Older.
I know. I'm not saying that as in wow, they had Steve Smith. I'm saying, yeah,
at
Steve
least
Smith.
when they won the Super Bowl, they had believe it or not, Torrey Smith was an actual solid receiver on the outside. He was your go route guy. He was the one to clear over the top. And then you had
Anquan
Bolden, who had I want to say NFL record of most touchdowns in the playoffs.
Yeah, he had a really good, not even just like that postseason was great, but he had a really good run with that team.
They had an unbelievable running game with Ray Rice. Ray Rice.
Yep.
They had tight end Todd Heap.
Was it Pitta?
Pitta, that's right.
Dennis Pitta.
Yes. And now you look at him and it's just
it's unrecognizable.
Alex Collins, Macklin when he was healthy for 6 games.
Mike Wallace.
I mean, look what they just grabbed Snead. So
no, they
reached out to Dez.
They made a concerted effort this offseason. We've talked about it, to bring in receivers.
Crabtree,
John Brown, injury-prone guy, but when he's healthy, he has a lot of upside. So yeah, they're really taking in a bulk of veteran guys and throwing them at the wall, see what sticks.
Now, I don't know Joe Flacco's contract, but what I can see is something similar to what Kansas City did with Alex.
What I know about his contract is that next season the dead money is not nearly as bad as it's been. So I think there's still a decent chunk of dead cash, but if they moved on from him next year, it's not a crippling amount.
Because here's my thing. Ozzy's leaving, and generally when a new GM comes in, they like their own new coach, their own new quarterback. I honestly believe it won't happen like that with Baltimore. I believe there's already a new GM in the works. Mm-hmm. He's going to take over with Harbaugh as coach and Jackson as your quarterback, because next year, no matter if they win the Super Bowl or not, I firmly believe Joe Flacco in 2019 will play elsewhere. They're going to use this coaching staff because they're not going to change. I honestly don't believe they're going to change the coaching staff when the new GM comes in. They're going to use this year, 2018, to formulate a game plan, a playbook, a
scheme.
Yes, for Jackson moving forward. They don't want to rush it. I firmly believe that this year they're going to have Jackson work on his mechanics, get to the speed of the NFL, use as much time as possible in preseason, get him all the snaps they can, let Joe Flacco play this regular season up until injury, or they have a losing record and they're not playing for anything.
Well, here's my thing. Because I agree with what you're saying. I think that's the path they should take with him. I think that's the path of greatest success for him and the team with him at quarterback. Here's the thing. Harbaugh, I don't know if he's actually on a hot seat, but the seat's it's not cold. It's definitely lukewarm at this point. Like there's rumblings about his job. say the team starts off 1-4. Do you put in Lamar Jackson if you're Jim?
Are they competitive?
I don't know.
Did they lose these games by 3 points, or are they getting smoked?
I don't know. Let's say, I don't know what their schedule will say, but say you lose a couple by a couple touchdowns. You know what I mean? That's fair. But like, what if you aren't competitive? Say, what if you're?
If you're not competitive, then yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. What if you?
But after 5 games, that's still early. You can go on an 8-win run.
But I mean, statistically, if you start off with 3 losses to begin a season in the first 4 games, you're not going to make the playoffs.
Wild cards have won Super Bowls before.
No. I'm not.
I know what you're saying.
But I'm saying the odds are against you. It's not impossible, but it's unlikely.
But you're still in the playoff hunt.
Sure.
So that I'd keep Flacco. Until I'm mathematically out of the playoffs, I'm keeping Flacco.
That's fair.
I'm buying time for Jackson.
Yeah.
Because I'll hear it from the fans. I'll hear it from the media, sure. But I'm waiting. Because I don't want to ruin this kid's career. Give him some time to mature to the NFL speed. Don't just throw him in there with the shocks already.
Yeah, no, I think your mindset is fair. I think it's the right mindset to have. I'm just curious to see how it plays out in real time with the people whose jobs are on the line.
Sure.
You're right. It depends on the variables. If the offense is really struggling, because another guy they added, who I really like, we haven't talked about the draft a ton. I mean, we're 2 weeks after the draft, so a lot has already been said that
digested.
Yeah. So, but one pick that I really liked that they made was Hayden Hurst, the tight end, South Carolina.
Yeah.
That's another guy in that mix. If you can get another solid tight end there. That's something they haven't had, like you said, probably since Dennis Pitta. Ben Watson was okay, but I mean, Ben Watson in his entire career has been like an average tight end. So I think having a guy like that with potential to be a really good pass catcher security blanket will help, Jackson in the long run. But
I forgot about that.
Yep, Flacco in the near future too.
Yeah, a quarterback's best friend besides a running game is definitely his tight end.
No, definitely. So
to have them mature and go through the NFL ranks will be a big deal for the Baltimore Ravens to come.
Definitely. 2 things I did want to talk about related to the draft real quick before we wrap up. 2 quarterbacks that were taken. One which I thought was a great move. One which I thought sucked.
Tell me how you really feel.
No. This is so I have been very high on what the Buffalo Bills have done since their new front office took over. You traded up to 7 to take Josh Allen, and I think that's a colossal mistake. I'm not sold on the guy. I think he's a project quarterback. He's not like my other team. That the move I liked, it was an Arizona trade up for Josh Rosen.
Yeah, I thought that was a no-brainer for him.
Yep.
Well, pause. I honestly thought they were going to grab Jackson, but because they did that, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I thought that was the fact that Rosen fell to number 10. Like that made made sense.
Well, because I know with our pre-draft thing, I said, "Oh, Jackson isn't going past."
Arizona. Me and you were both there, but it's just it played out the way it did, and I don't blame them for going with that. But I like the Rosen pick because I think he has a lot more potential. Like I think he's a lot more refined than Allen is. Allen, I just hate the whole talk around him is that. He has the look of a quarterback, but can he play quarterback? Can he actually complete passes? Can he, you know what I mean? Can he actually read a defense?
Paxton Lynch looked like a quarterback.
Yeah.
Brock Osweiler looked like a quarterback.
And that's the thing that, like, frustrates me. And, like, as a Patriots fan, I'm like, good, Buffalo screwed up again in my mind. But at the same time, it's like, as just an objective looking at it, like, from a team building standpoint, and I've liked what Buffalo's done, it's like, what the hell are you guys doing? Like, you should have taken Rosen there. You should have just not taken Josh Allen. And they traded up for him, which I thought was asinine.
I don't have the combine numbers on me right now, but I do know Buffalo likes quarterbacks who have a large hand because of the weather, the wind. Might be a clue. I don't have the numbers.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people were saying that he has a big arm and, like, that will benefit playing in crappy weather, but it's like if he has accuracy issues, how is he going to play well in crappy weather? You know what I'm saying? Like if he can't be accurate on a balmy 70-degree day with no wind, how's he going to do it when
No, I'm not saying arm talent. I'm saying hand size.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Oh, all right. Because that's why they traded up to grab EJ Manuel.
And we know how well that worked.
True, but that's what their mind frame. I know it's a whole different front office at this point. But at that point, now I'm just comparing. I'm not comparing quarterbacks. I'm just comparing moves. Like, they traded up for him. I don't have the numbers, but I'm just curious if maybe he had because EJ had the largest hand size from your thumb, the tip of your thumb, all the way to the tip of your pinky. You measure that out. That's what the combine measures, is your hand size. How large is your hands to wrap around the football? I'm just curious. Maybe I'll look down for the next our next podcast, but maybe that came into play for Buffalo.
That's a great theory. I love it. But yeah, I needed to say that. I thought it was a stupid move, and it's frustrating for a team that I felt like was making a lot of good ones and was kind of on the upswing when it came to personnel decisions, that they did something like that. And like I said, I love the Arizona with the Rosen thing. I mean, I thought that was a great pick for them. I mean, I think it gives them a hope in the quarterback position that they haven't had since Matt Leinart, and I don't think that's a great comparison.
Oh boy, Matt Leinart.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't like making that comparison because, like, Leinart washed out of the NFL, but I think at least they have some sort of hope. And I felt like if they had taken Lamar Jackson, they would have had the similar kind of thing. Really, anybody but Allen. I wasn't huge on Darnold either, but
you know what happened to Leinart? He didn't have the arm strength. He wasn't able to zip passes. And that was the trouble with him coming out of college. I remember that. I remember that draft. He came out with Vince Young. Yeah. That was the big thing coming out with him, was his arm strength. Not the 40, 50-yard throws, but to zip. He didn't have
the velocity.
Right. Sorry. Thank you.
Yeah.
The velocity. And that was the trouble with him. I do remember that draft. Yeah. USC.
Yeah. You have 7 years on me, so it's probably all more clear to you. So, like, because that was, 2005 or something like that? Like, I don't freaking know, man. I was, like, 10 years old. Like, I don't even know how much of the draft I even watched at 10 years old. So you definitely I'm taking your word for it, because that definitely, like, that sounds right.
Yeah, that was a big draft class, actually.
Yeah. No, it's...
Yes, I've watched the draft since then. I have a pretty keen memory with football.
Yeah,
knowledge.
man. I enjoy watching it now, especially the first round. I just enjoy the
spectacle. The NFL has done a very good job at making their NFL scheduling per month. Every month is something.
Yeah, they've done a good job of keeping people's eyes and attention towards the league, because you got to think about it. Once the Super Bowl is over, then it's like the playoffs and the push for the winter sports, hockey and basketball, start heating up. And, like, people pay attention to that, but if you're still a football fan, you're still got, like, one foot in the NFL door, because there's still stuff going on.
Yeah, you got March. March is
the league year, free agency.
Yeah, the free agency. April's the draft. June is OTAs. Then you got mini camp in July, training camp in preseason in August, and then holy shit, September's here, Sunday kickoff.
Yeah,
and that's the unique thing with the NFL is I know people love their basketball and people love their baseball and the statistics, but they don't. There's not baseball, basketball, hockey. It's not a whole year thing.
I will say, I think the NBA has done a decent job, not to the same extent as the NFL, because the NFL has a bigger grip on American culture. But the NBA has done a decent job of adding drama with their draft. Like, they have after the NFL, they have the most prominent draft coverage, because ESPN's pretty hard on that and whatnot. Their free agency gets a decent amount of buzz, I think, just because of the names. I think the players have such personalities. Yeah, but the players have such personalities, and they're such a, like, they're obviously an integral part of the NFL, but I feel like in the NBA it's more you have an affiliation to a player more than a team in a lot of ways, if that makes sense, because the players have such big personalities and whatnot.
Yeah, like, people will follow LeBron wherever LeBron goes.
Or Durant.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, you don't see, like... Well, that's the thing. You don't see these big-name guys in the NFL going from one team to the next.
Man, we could do a whole podcast about the inner workings of free agency in the NFL, but we could go on forever about that.
But that's the thing. There's a lot more leverage in the NFL for the front office over their players, where it's more of a players' league in the NBA.
Definitely. Oh, 100%.
And then baseball, it's like, oh, so-and-so just signed 10 years for $500 million.
And the other thing with baseball, just a quick aside before we wrap up, baseball is really weird because you have to get service time in the MLB. I think it's 6 years before you can hit free agency. So it's like Aaron Judge just came up 2 years ago or something. I think it's like 4 years you're just making crap. Then you hit arbitration for 2 and then free agency. So it's really weird. And I think it's to keep small market teams able to retain their players longer where they have those rights.
That would make sense.
But it's a weird system. It's really like, basketball is kind of weird with like the bird rights and stuff and whatever. And I think out of the major sports, it's just like the weirdest system, just like with service time and arbitration.
Yeah, those sports I'm not too familiar with all those stuff.
Yeah, hey man, I only know super about basketball, Cap, because of 2K, because I ball up that 2K franchise.
Well, speaking of Cap, that's what makes the NFL so special. Besides the Browns, I mean, you could go from the bottom all the way to the top.
I know. It's the goal of the NFL has been parity. They want every team to be as close together as possible because they want to have that unexpected outcome to it. And it's never going to be perfect because teams are always going to make dumb decisions and do stupid things, make stupid trades, stupid picks. So you're always going to have your basement dwellers and you're going to have organizations that are just poorly run like Washington. I'm telling you, man, I'm going to rag on that team all the way through freaking preseason. I think they're going to suck. But yeah, overall, I mean, it's especially the NFC now is very wide open. You have a lot of good teams and a lot of good competition. So I think the league, at least in that conference, has done a good job of keeping teams pretty even, making it exciting.
And keeping our attention all year round.
Definitely. So I'm looking forward to it. I don't want to wish the summer away. The weather just got nice around here, but...
Oh, yeah. I just started my softball,
yeah,
so
man.
I still got 5 months left of that.
Yeah.
Travel ball and all that fun stuff.
You know how to live the life, my friend. Yeah. So we'll be back in a couple weeks, 2-3 weeks or so. We'll just see what comes up. I definitely want to talk about the schedule, the NFL, because that came out before the draft. We didn't really get to talk about it. But, we'll have some dead time here unless something super crazy happens between now and in minicamp and stuff. We'll be able to just kind of talk about some interesting things with the schedule and
dead time.
Yeah,
dead time. After I just said the NFL keeps a good job on keeping us entertained.
Hey, you know what?
Yeah.
2 months out of the year for dead time for a sport that only lasts like 4 or 5 months that's pretty good.
True.
I take that.
True. Or else we'd be like baseball and not talk for 4 months.
That's true. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. Definitely like us on Facebook. Gonna try to definitely get more active in our Facebook feed with stuff going on around the league, sharing and posting stuff. But like us on Facebook, follow us on YouTube, and from the Goal Line Stand here. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll be back in a few weeks. Have a good one, everyone.